Hello and welcome to A Review to a Kill, the James Bond retrospective podcast where we rewatch every Bond from Connery to Craig to review and rank each one. I'm your host, Special Agent Sedgwick, and returning for this debrief is an agent that's still replaying the last mission on N64.
Carter, Chris Carter. And no, I got an Xbox.
Today, we're reviewing Tomorrow Never Dies, the 18th Bond outing from Eon Productions, the first Bond film made after the death of Cubby, to whom it pays tribute in the end credits, and the last released under United Artists. It's also Pierce's only non-number one Bond premiere, as it released the same week as Titanic.
Huh.
The film premiered at the Odeon Leicester Square on the 9th of December 1997. Reception was mostly meh. Retrospective reviews have been getting better recently, as the real world catches up more to the plot.
The plot of this movie was oddly prescient.
But it still has mixed, at best, reviews and scores. Made for $110 million, it made $333 million in the box office. The film got 4 Saturn noms, with Brosnan winning for Best Actor. The film also won a Golden Reel Award for sound editing, and the title song, sung by Sheryl Crow, was nommed for a Golden Globe and a Grammy.
Nice.
Produced by Babs Brock and Mike Wilson, Pierce Brosnan returning. The dots roll out, and the Bond theme cuts in halfway through the first note. It's the classic theme, but soft and cloudy. They used the same Bond plate as last time, and something got lost in compression. Brosnan's edges are jagged and the blacks are washed out. The barrel and blood plate are washed out slightly compared to last time as well.
Yeah, I noticed a difference in this one. I couldn't tell quite what it was, but there was a distinct difference.
It looked like they digitally compressed it and it looked like shit.
Yeah, that's what it looked like.
It'll save storage though. Can only hold so many things on my floppy. The dot reveals a random arms bazaar on an even more random mountaintop at the Russian border, though shot in French Pyrenees. This is an odd mix of military craft costing millions to dudes with AKs in their car boot. Want a fake Rolex? I got those too.
Yeah, it's like a straight Fugazi market in there. But I was also going to point out, because of where they filmed this, no jets could fly in there, so they had to take them apart and put them together on site.
That's dope.
Yeah, that's pretty dope.
We see a camera spying on the terrorist supermarket. Then we cut to the footage being shown at MI6 as Bond displays for them what's on sale. M orders her deputy chief of staff, Charles Robinson, played by Colin Salmon, to run Face ID on people at the trunk trade. One of them is Henry Gupta, played by real-life magician and card thrower Ricky Jay. Gupta is a hacker, and he's buying a small device that controls the GPS commands of all American satellites. Somehow.
Well, I guess back in the late 90s, GPS technology was relatively new and definitely a military thing.
You're telling me one device literally controlled all of our satellites?
I'm just saying maybe the military thought it would be easier if they just had one remote.
No. You're talking about the kings of redundancy.
Right? Yes, I know. We've both been in the military, and yes, they have a redundancy for every redundancy.
Right? I was about to say, you know that.
Nobody's going to have just one way to control something.
That's just a good way to make everything fuck up.
Yeah.
Adam Roebuck, played by Jeffrey Palmer, says, "I've seen enough. This is a military operation now, and we're going to fire missiles on the site. Fuck the terrorists." Oh yeah, tell your boy to get out if he can, I guess.
I love the 90s, back when we can just drop missiles onto foreign soil and nobody would really care.
A missile is launched, and a ticking clock is engaged. There's a composite of the missile flying over the water that gave me Never Say Never Again flashbacks.
Really?
Yeah. It was done better, but it still made me think of it.
Yeah.
Robinson tells Bond he has 4 minutes, but Bond says he can't leave. There's Soviet nuclear torpedoes on an Aero L-39 Albatross. If the missile hits those, then no one can ski up here next season, and maybe even some seasons after that.
Most militaries plan for their nuclear weapons to be blown up, so that doesn't happen.
Also, it's like, who gives a fuck? Like, why is that suddenly a big deal? It's only going to kill the terrorists and some glaciers.
Yeah, I mean, it is at the top of a mountain where nobody fucking goes, i.e. that's why they're having a terrorist meeting up here.
They try to abort the missile, but it's already out of range and on its way. Terrence Rigby plays the Russian General Bukharin, who says that's enough plutonium to make Chernobyl look like picnic. And I'm going to call BS on that. Chernobyl was a reactor blown wide open with no containment. Stupid dialogue to add tension and stakes.
Stupid dialogue to add tension and stakes, and I had forgotten Chernobyl was so long ago.
Really? I mean, it was like literally 11 years before this movie.
Was it? I don't know. For some reason, I just remember it being in the 2000s, I guess.
You might be thinking of Fukushima in 2010.
I could be conflating. You're absolutely right.
We finally cut to Bond, lighting a dude's cigarette before punching him out, saying, "Filthy habit. Dude, you smoke."
Right?
Also, why'd you take the 5 seconds to light his smoke and say that? Just hit him. The missile is coming.
Right? Like, why? I don't know. He likes to take time for dramatic pauses.
He has 4 minutes.
Yes, I know, but that doesn't not mean that you don't have time for a 10-second dramatic pause, I guess. He could have easily just ran up to the plane, jumped in, and took off. But that's not what he chose to do.
Bond tosses his lighter, which is a grenade. He sets more sticky bombs. He has the miniguns fire, and just creates general chaos. He takes out the goons and weapons, making his way to the Albatross. He knocks out the pilot in the rear seat, and standing in the front seat, lays down the auto fire. He tosses one more grenade and gets in the plane. He shoots the plane's 50 cals and non-nuclear missiles. Dude, you know there's a missile coming to do all of this, right? Just get out of there. Stop blowing shit up.
That's what I was saying. It's like, you know there's a missile coming. You have plenty of time. Could have used stealth. But no, we're going to go out with the biggest... He Michael baited.
Well, he felt like doing more and having more explosions and more action means it's going to outdo and be better than the last opening, which had action and shit in it, but was actually far more of an intimate adventure with Bond and, you know, getting to know him and his friend and those motivations, and even Ourumov a little bit. It set up the plot. It set up those 3 characters in a deeper way than most openings ever have, or pretty much any opening had at that point. And this is just like explosions for no reason.
Explosions! It was gratuitous and unnecessary.
But they feel like they had to do it. And that's kind of a big point of this movie is it's not really done for any reason other than he kind of felt like they had to. And they also very rarely stick the landing.
I also read that they had to rush through production for a whole lot of reasons.
A whole lot of reasons, which we're not going to get into.
No, we're not going to get into that.
Bond rolls down the runway in 180s to take off, but another Arrow L-39 has moved to the other end, and they play a game of chicken. 30 seconds to impact. Should only have 8 seconds left from the initial 4 minutes in real time, and it hits 20 seconds after he says this. So both of them were off in real time, but neither more than 12 seconds. And when you think about it, that's actually pretty good.
Actually, for a movie, that's pretty good. I mean, it's better than his arrival in the office later.
Bond takes off over the other jet as his co-pilot he never killed or threw out slowly wakes up. The missile hits and shit blows up again, but bigger this time.
Yeah, what was in that missile?
It was a Navy missile, and it hit the other explosives.
The ones that Bond didn't blow up, I'm assuming?
Bond fucked around so much, he was taking off right there when that missile hit. He flew through the blast. He definitely was not clear of that shockwave. And they were so worried that the blast would destroy this plane and its payload. But he's completely fine.
Oh, no, he's okay. Perfectly okay. I mean, it was only fire he had to fly through and a shockwave of a fucking nearly atomic missile. But, nah, he's fine.
This opening is a perfect case of writers trying to have their cake and eat it too. The missile means nothing because Bond destroyed everything and is impervious to it. The stakes are meaningless and things just happen for the spectacle.
Basically, you're not wrong there.
Bond is chased through the mountains by the other jet who also survived somehow. To make matters more seat-gripping, his co-pilot is now strangling him as well.
There's a lot of loose wires in the cockpit of that fucking airplane. I've been in a cockpit of an airplane or two. You know what I didn't notice?
I don't know. I've noticed a lot of loose wires in some. It just depends.
But not most fighter jets. You don't want that stuff flapping around, smacking you in the face while you're trying to do high G maneuvers?
Put some speed tape on that shit. It's fine. They shot so much footage of the aerial coordinator ripping around these mountains for this. They used real jets, life-scale models, small-scale models, clever cuts, and compositing to bring all of this to life. The rest of this sequence is actually pretty decent for me. Bond shakes the jet and flies directly underneath it to hide. He then hits the passenger-only ejector and shoots his co-pilot into the cockpit of the jet above, forcefully through the fuselage of the jet. And is that how any of that works? Any of that? Because I was an Army medic and not a Navy pilot, so please let me know. Because All of that felt like bullshit.
I was an Army medic, not a Navy pilot. And no, that's not how any of that shit works.
Passenger only ejector seat? What the fuck would that honestly realistic be practically for?
Right?
Like, you live, I'm taking it down. The jet peels off and explodes. Bond quips, "Backseat driver," and flies off with no canopy. And yet, when he radios in to give M a smug win over the overzealous admiral, you can hear him just fine, and there doesn't seem to be any noise at all. Now, there was a plane in real life that had part of its fuselage rip away, and they couldn't communicate with air traffic control because the wind was so loud at that speed.
Yeah.
But hey, we won. Bond theme hits, and Bond hits the afterburners, again with no canopy. That got me. I was like, okay, maybe he's just going to go really slow. And then you see the afterburners kick in, and you're like, okay. He really wants to test the structural integrity of this craft.
Yeah. I don't understand how the producers of these Bond movies can be so up on their cutting edge technology, but when they start writing the movie, they're like, physics be damned. None of that stuff is real. We need the story to work.
We were shown off technology. We don't know how it works.
Yeah, basically.
Bond was too close to our screens, though, and broke the glass, which pulls us into the title sequence, literally. The title's creator wanted to take us below the surface, behind the news. He wanted to reflect media and communication, using technology and satellites, also using negative and X-rays, seeing behind and into the workings. Sheryl Crow's song starts up, and it's both very Sheryl Crow and also exactly what 90s songs thought Secret Agent songs sounded like. See Man of War by Radiohead.
That's a good song, though.
Hell yeah. The director used real girls and CGI, but only women. No Bond or his analog. He also used smoke, because they all do. Even our title card for this show has that smoke most Bond titles have.
Thank you, Maurice, for all the smoke.
Production supervisor, Callum McDougall. Assistant director, Jerry Gavigan. Life is given by the medium as a girl arises from the circuitry. They show weapons in reference to the opening. Set decor by Peter Young. Miniatures by John Richardson. They're pretty noticeable. Derek Meddings was a G, and he's dead, and I miss him already.
It's okay. You don't have to apologize for his shoddy work.
Aerial coordinator and madman from the jet sequence, Airwolf himself, Mark Wolf. Halo jump coordinator, stalwart BJ Worth. Main titles by Daniel Kleinman, a rock music video director. Making one of these was his childhood dream. Special effects supervisor, a returning Chris Corbold. Stunt supervisor and winner of the best name, Dickie Beer.
He wins.
Second unit director, Vic Armstrong. Edited by Dominique Fortin and Michel Arcand. Director of photography, Robert Elswit. Production designer, Alan Cameron. Music by David Arnold. They were in talks to get John Barry back one more time, but it fell through.
Aw.
I know.
But, to be fair, very Barry-esque.
It felt like he tried to do Barry, but like everything else in this movie, put their own little twist on it, and their twist is kind of where it fucks everything up.
Falls down. Yes, it was very Barry-esque.
I feel like I should have more to say about these titles. They're well made skill-wise. He had some kind of idea and theme that he wanted to go for, but it all feels very one-dimensional and hollow. Other than having thematic elements and being executed well, there's not much more to it. And it's very by the numbers. In fact, this whole movie is. And if you watch behind-the-scenes interviews, you get a good sense why. Because the director making the movie was 100% trying to make a Bond film by checklist with the "but how can we do it different" mindset from his own mouth. He also second-guessed a lot of his own creative and technical decisions afterward, making me feel as if he wasn't really the best man for the job. And as good as this film may have ended up for you, it could have been better.
Oh my gosh. Could this movie have been so much better?
The diamonds on this girl's neck float away like satellites, orbiting a celestial body. She also looks at me with this half pout, half come hither face, and oh my god, dude, I just fell in love. Or at least my penis did.
Pretty sure it was just your penis.
Oh, fuck. Thank God. Tomorrow Never Dies, performed by Sheryl Crow. It seems to have mixed reactions from fans, but it was nommed for a Golden Globe and a fucking Grammy for a reason. It's a pretty good song. I personally love it. It's written from the perspective of a Bond girl about Bond. It's a low-tempo rock song with that pre-funk sound that never strays far from the theme that it's adapting, and it could fit any of the Bond movies so far, but it perfectly sets the tone for this one.
It is a good song. I'm not going to disagree with that. The composition, the way the song is put together, everything about the song, I just don't personally like Sheryl Crow's voice. Like, if this song was performed by anybody else, I think it would be a fantastic song.
Line producer Anthony Way, written by Bruce Firestein. Firestein wrote the first draft after being inspired by CNN's 24-hour coverage of the Gulf War. And Firestein also based Carver on Ian Robert Maxwell, with their reported drowned but missing deaths bearing a lot of similarities. Produced by Michael G. Wilson and Barbara Broccoli, they switched places.
Yeah.
We fade to black. Directed by a man with imposter syndrome. They wanted Martin Campbell back, but he wanted to do Mask of Zorro, so in with Roger Spottiswoode. I'm sure he's a fine director, honestly, I really do, but he was, by his own admission, out of his depth here.
That's patently obvious.
We fade into the worst day-for-night filter I've ever seen in a major motion picture. We see here the HMS Devonshire, the ship, and the two other frigates in the film are all portrayed by the real-life HMS Westminster. The ship is cruising the South China Sea when it's buzzed by two MiGs. Something seems to be off as the Chinese think the Brits are in their waters, and the Brits think they are in international waters. Things are heating up, and the Brits make sure to send an immediate report of this confusing engagement before it escalates and they're unable to do so. We then cut to an exterior shot of the Carver Media Group network in Hamburg. Bro, that name feels redundant. Also, that's really the IBM building in Feltham. Cutting inside, we see Gupta fucking with satellites. We then cut to Carver's special-made stealth ship, modeled after the real-life Sea Shadow. Aboard, they prepare a special drill torpedo, and some blonde German guy named Stamper, played by Gotts Otto, says they're ready, into his headpiece. This is the new millennium is coming boy band version of a henchman. Otto nailed his audition in 5 seconds for Stamper by saying, "I'm big, I'm bad, I'm German." And they said, "You're hired."
He is the quintessential German.
The ship may be stealth, but the drill isn't. So they plan to launch it when the MiGs fly by again to make it look like they dropped a torpedo. Stamper FaceTimes an obscured Carver and lets him know what's up. They lower the drill and send it toward the Devonshire. It eats through the hull and turns on a dime somehow to pull itself upward through the ship, drilling and killing the whole way. Stamper directs the fuck gravity drill like he's playing backseat Pac-Man. Meanwhile, the ship is sinking. This whole time, it's been typical, tense, exciting music with people running and screaming while chaos ensues. Now it's all slow-mo, and the music is more somber, with a chorus.
Yeah, because everybody's dying, and the Titanic just came out.
It's more in the style of the John Woo low frame rate slow-mo is what they're doing here, and they'll do it again in the end a lot more.
Oh, they do it, yeah.
12 frames a second slow-mo, yeah.
Especially in the end.
Especially in the end. She turns her head and they do it.
Oh,
It was like, what the fuck?
Yeah, it's like, why? I mean, I love Michelle Yeoh, don't get me wrong. She's beautiful, but why?
They chose the weirdest times to try the style out.
Yeah.
The commanders radio England to report the attack, and the stealth ship fires a missile at one of the MiGs, blowing it out of the sky. So now England thinks China attacked them in open sea, and China thinks England attacked them in their own waters. And I want to add real quick that a very young Gerard Butler is one of the Devonshire crewmen here.
Is he really? I didn't notice him.
Yeah, well, he's somewhere in the background drowning.
Awesome.
We cut to an obscuring extreme close-up of Elliot Carver, played by Jonathan Pryce. He's writing the headline on the attack and wants to know how many survivors were to be found shot to death by machine gun fire. He also reminds Stamper to use the nationally correct ammunition. Carver was initially offered to Anthony Hopkins, who was also offered a role in GoldenEye, but he declined, like Campbell, in favor of the Mask of Zorro.
I think they made the right choice. I'm just saying, I love James Bond movies.
If you worked on the Mask of Zorro over this film, you made the right choice.
Yeah, right.
That's all I'm saying. That movie's actually good.
That movie's actually good.
It's really good.
It is actually really, really good. Maybe it's because of the actor or everything, but he just He just gave me such Spy Kids vibe the whole movie.
Too much of this movie was cartoonish. They went to Looney Tunes gags in this movie more than once.
More than once. The tonal imbalance of the humor in this movie with the seriousness was really off.
It wasn't even really a tonal imbalance. It was really just an inability to create any kind of stability whatsoever. Like, think about Jonathan Pryce's character, for example. How was he mad? Was he a psychopath? Was he a sociopath? Was he an egomaniac? Was he a megalomaniac? He was all the above because they didn't know how to write him.
Yes, he was. He was all of the above.
At a certain point, you started to realize, this is ridiculous. He just has all the crazy.
Right.
Carver calls the fake news false flag attack that he created delicious, which is kind of his thing. And we cut back to Stamper brutally mowing down the swimming survivors from the British Navy while they film it. From an angle hiding the shooter, of course.
Of course.
Divers also dive into the ship through the path the drill created and start cutting something with torches. Stamper FaceTimes Gupta to tell him Phase 1 is complete, and Gupta drops a deck of cards and goes to get his magic satellite device. Now, as I said, Ricky Jay was a real-life card thrower, and they had him tossing some here to set up for later, but it was cut.
Oh,
It really did look silly, so they cut all of it.
it sounds silly, but good.
It sounds cool, like he could throw cards, but then you just realize you're just kind of getting like paper cuts.
Yeah. They're not metal cards or shuriken or anything like that.
And they weren't, they were just cards. It's not even like they did the gimmick cards either, yeah. We cut to Elliot Carver in full reveal. He's in his media room, surrounded by screens and cameras. He has a tablet he keeps hitting like he's Al, trying to ask Ziggy how to get Sam to leap out of a young girl's body. Also, Mike Wilson is Mr. Wallace, the guy on the screen who's ordered to blackmail the president and then release the dirt anyway.
Oh, really? That's Mike Wilson, huh? He gave himself a line this time.
Yeah, he did. You're right. He had a speaking line this time, too.
Yeah.
Gupta enters, and Carver pauses the meeting to get a private FaceTime from Stamper saying he has the video, and they're just adding filters and stickers with the perfect song real quick before putting it up on TikTok with the Carver hashtag. He goes back to the meeting awkwardly and rambles, but Jesus, who designed this room? The acoustics have to suck for this televangelist-style board meeting.
Yeah, it's a weird headquarters.
It's so they can have him in a cool little media office and then later have it for a party. And it doesn't really fit either. It's honestly too small for that kind of event, but it's too big for his office, and the middle ground is stupid. We cut to Bond in bed with Professor Inga Bergstrom. She's played by Cicely Thompson and is his Danish instructor. He always enjoyed learning a new tongue. His phone rings, and it's Moneypenny. She asks him where he is, and he says over at Oxford, brushing up on a little Danish, kissing the woman's body into the mic the whole time.
Yeah.
Moneypenny tells James to kiss off his lesson and that he always was a cunning linguist. And Moneypenny hangs up and finds M behind her. Moneypenny says, don't ask. And M says, don't tell.
97 in the house. Don't ask, don't tell. Let's just put all the major headlines that happened in the last few years, we'll say from 92 to now, 97. Let's just put them all in one Bond movie.
Yeah. Mad cow disease.
Mad cow disease, don't ask, don't tell, Chernobyl. Throw them all in there.
They're all in here, and I wasn't kidding about mad cow disease either.
Yeah, no, I know you're not. No, I watched the movie, yeah. They're all in there.
We cut to the classic DB5, pulling not into Vauxhall Cross, but to Somerset House, which served as St. Petersburg Square in the last movie, oddly enough. Then inside to M, arguing with Roebuck again, this time about the position of the Devonshire and the attack. Now, she already knows the plot and its magic devices.
M is on top of everything, and it seems like at the beginning of this movie, and if they had held this vein, it would have made a very interesting James Bond film. But it seems like they were setting up M to be one of the primary protagonists, facing off against the military, which would have been great subplot in this entire thing. But no, they touch on it, and then they just move on.
They give her multiple victories over him, but it's more tongue-in-cheek. It's not like Spectre, where M actually goes to war against a corrupt government agent.
Yes. It's not like Spectre, but they could have done it better. As we said in the beginning, like there's a whole lot of in this movie that could have been better with just a little thought and foresight.
She says they picked up a mysterious GPS signal. I guess, whatever that means. Roebuck wants to attack, and M wants to investigate, and they do a dolly zoom on her while she says this. It's kind of fucking weird, like this was supposed to be intense or something. And she also says China has the world's largest air force, which, yeah, right, lady.
Since when?
Never.
Okay, I'm going to list the top 2 air forces in the world. Are you ready? Number 1, the United States Air Force. Number 2, the United States Navy.
If going off actual nations, it used to be America, Russia, China, and now it's America, China. But China is not the biggest. Look it up. Nor was it back then.
Nor was it back then, no. Literally, it is the Air Force and the Navy are the top 2 air powers in the world right now.
No country spends on their military like America. No country. That's why nobody can afford to buy our shit.
Yeah.
Bond enters and shows Carver's paper, The Tomorrow's headlines, about murdered soldiers. And the Minister of Defense, played by Julian Fellows, gives M 48 hours to investigate. Fix it, or it's war.
I was just going to say, are we not going to point out that Moneypenny gave Bond 30 minutes to get there and he got there in 7?
He only needed 2.
Literally.
We then cut to a motorcade of BMW cycles with pigs on them and a 1987 Daimler limo. Inside the limo, we get the true M briefing scene because Roger does all the major spots but twists them. So the meeting, check, but this time it's in a car. This scene is already long and was about twice as long and 10 times as awkward, but the editors prevailed. Bond points out his contact in Vietnam says they found the bodies 3 hours ago, and Robinson asks how they got the paper out so fast.
Well, obviously, they did it.
M asks Bond to info brag on Elliot Carver. Bond says nothing that we don't already know, but adds that he can topple governments with a keystroke. This writing is almost high school level.
I might even call it junior high school level. Some of my friends in high school were better writers than this.
M says the GPS signal came from a Carver satellite. They're sending him to Hamburg for a party at Carver's tonight. M points out that Bond once had a relationship with Carver's wife, Paris, and Bond points out that it was before she was married. M says, well, rekindle that and pump her for info. And Moneypenny says, you'll have to decide how much pumping is needed. Now, after an establishing insert of a plane, we fade to the airport at Hamburg and see the Tomorrow headline of China warning the British fleet. James grabs the paper and then, to the woman at the Avis counter, says, in German, hello, I need a fast, flashy car to compensate for my penis. I think my German is rusty. He actually says he is here for his auto reservation, and she leaves for Q to arrive in an Avis Blazer. Q asks Bond to sign the insurance waiver for his new car. Collision coverage? Yes. Fire? Probably. Property damage? Definitely. Personal injury? I hope not, but accidents do happen. They frequently do with you. Well, that takes care of the normal wear and tear. Any other protection I need? Only from me if you don't bring that car back in pristine condition.
At this point, you would think Q would be tired of telling him this shit.
He is. He's getting angry about it.
Has he ever brought back a car?
He has brought back cars. The DB5, the original one, was in Thunderball, all rusted up. His Bentley that he was chilling in Dr. No was in the background, getting worked on in From Russia with Love.
All right. I'll give you those couple.
They then cut to the car reveal in one of the airport's hangars. They're shot in an airport outside London. The sides drop from a crate, and we see his new 1997 BMW 750. Wah, wah.
Wah, wah.
In the background, we see a Jaguar. No, not the car. The animal in another revealed crate. This was a deleted scene making use of a throwaway joke that I just used. But left on the floor, there's just a Jaguar in the background now.
Why is there a Jaguar?
Why is there a Jaguar just chilling there? What are y'all doing? Who decorated this set?
Why are you working at Avis, Q?
Hey, man, retirement ain't what it used to be.
That's what I was thinking. It's like, am I 6 not paying what it used to? Like...
It's going to be greeter at Walmart next. It has all the usual refinements, plus GPS tracker and a female voice assistant. Nicola McAuliffe gives the voice that Bond thinks he's betted before. Because, of course he has. If you're a female and don't remember sleeping with Bond, the experience was so amazing that you blacked out because he's slept with all the women.
Are you sure it wasn't a Cosby experience?
Maybe. That would explain some things, actually.
That would explain a few things.
Q gives Bond a new cell phone also. It has a fingerprint scanner, and a stun gun, and a remote control for his new car, all on the phone. Q sucks at driving it, but of course, again, Bond grabs the controls and is literally god tier instantly, driving on Stig levels with his fucking finger on a Nokia trackpad with 1997 sensitivity. He literally swerves at speed around a helicopter and hard stops inches before running himself and old-ass Q over. Fucking bullshit.
Oh, absolute bullshit, but I had one of those remote control BMWs, and it came with a little phone that you could use to control it, but it had sticks instead of a pad.
We cut to the exterior of Carver's media building for the party, and then inside to hear the tail end of another cut scene. Just the bit where Carver denies starting mad cow disease press routes because a beef baron lost to him in poker and refused to pay up. He gives the same faux denial that he accepted money from the French to keep running it for another year.
I call bullshit.
Oh, yeah. They cut out a good third of the scenes developing Carver, including a scene where he orders Stamper to brutally stomp a worker to death for literally no reason at all. But it was actually great and shows how insane he is. He is used to everything going his way and being perfect, and he doesn't know how to control himself or even care that he doesn't when things don't go his way.
I think they did this villain a disservice because he potentially was one of the best Bond villains out there.
No, he wasn't.
Well, potentially.
No, he wasn't.
You don't think so?
No, I don't at all. I think the plan is brilliant. I think the actor is brilliant. I don't think this character ever had anything going to him. He has conflicting mental disorders, for Christ's sake. He was never written well.
No, he wasn't written well. Like I said, I think they did this character a disservice. He had the potential to be a really good villain, but that's not how they wrote him. If they had left that scene with him ordering Stamper to stomp some dude,
it wouldn't have been enough. It's his lack of ambition.
All right.
Daphne Deckers plays Carver's PR woman who introduces Bond to Carver as a banker. Carver bemoans that he has bankers swimming out his ears. Carver blows Bond off to introduce himself to the beautiful Chinese woman behind Bond. And this is Wei Lin, a Chinese secret agent trained in different martial arts and fluent in 5 languages. She's played by Oscar winner Michelle Yeoh, who is never not amazing. And she and Pierce did mild stunt work and constantly tried to one-up each other.
Probably much to the consternation of the insurance providers for this film.
Yep. She tells Carver she works for a Chinese paper, and they schmooze each other while Bond walks off. Bond then runs into Paris, his old flame, and Carver's present wife. Now, Monica Bellucci auditioned for Paris, but lost to the worst Lois Lane of all time. Brosnan bitterly said that they were fools for that choice, and I agree. But we would see Monica Bellucci in Spectre years later, though.
Oh my fucking god. They were going to give that role to Monica Bellucci? So much...
This movie would have been completely different just with that one casting change, honestly.
God, I love Monica Bellucci.
Because it would have actually sold the impact of what they were trying to do with that character.
Terry Hatcher was useless in this movie.
Bond approaches Paris, saying he'd always wondered how he'd felt if he saw her again, and she slaps the fuck out of him, arousing gasps. Now I know. Was it something I said? How about I'll be right back? Tell me, James, do you still sleep with a gun under your pillow? Now, as they talk and drink, Gupta watches from CCTV with magic audio scrubbing AI that won't exist for another quarter of a century, but it's Bond's bad guys. Guilt by association.
Guilt by association, absolutely.
Paris tells him she moved on, and he better not even think of trying to get the dirt from her. Carver comes up all, there you are. I see you know each other. Bond says, why do you have satellites, bro? Carver says he uses them to spread information. And Bond says, or misinformation. You could move people, governments, ships. Carver laughs it off, and Bond gets caught looking at Paris a little longingly. Carver and Paris take leave, and Carver calls Paris a terrible liar. He then tells Stamper that he has a problem with a banker and asks to borrow him for a moment.
Is James Bond the worst spy ever? Because it seems like every time he's introduced to the bad guy undercover, he gives away some sort of entendre to make them suspect that he may know more than he's saying. It's almost every time. Ships, maybe? Like, what the fuck would a banker be concerned with satellites and ships for?
He's literally basically extracting information less like an actual spy and more like a detective in an interrogation room.
Yeah.
He's basically trying to get you to slip. He's trying to arise emotion and get you to lose control.
Matthew, you and I are not supervillains or evil geniuses by any sort of the word. Would that work on you?
No, that's the absolute worst tactic to do surreptitious info extraction. That's the only thing you do when you basically have a dude trapped in a room with nowhere to go and nothing to do but get beat by that hammer.
Okay, just check it.
Back with Bond, as everyone moves into the main room for the event broadcast, Wei Lin asks Bond what kind of banking he does, and Bond says hostile takeovers. We then see why this media room is so big. It's so they could have this party scene where Carver gives a Steve Jobs presentation. He starts off all it was supposed to be joyous, but tragedy. Oh, the humanity. All while the provocative, sensational images and headlines fly behind him on giant screens. This guy is Donald Trump. Bond has been taken by security to a soundproof recording room, and they start jumping him. It's like 3 old dudes, and one has a bat, but they just keep lightly kicking him and trying not to fall over for the effort. Bond finally fights back and easily kicks their asses, which, yeah, they can barely stand on their own. Why didn't he do this before the beating?
It kind of reminded me of a scene from like Ocean's 11 or 21 or something. The old ass Vegas bodyguards are going to take him downstairs to the basement, beat his ass, tell him not to come around here no more.
Boss said, I'm going to smash your fingers. Bond smashes a dude with a piano and another with a bass. They smash through the mixer's window, and he finishes them off. Carter's speech has been going on the entire time and is reaching crescendo. He's doing the Google thing, pledge no evil, just to be nothing but evil. He says he's championing the truth and just, but really is manipulating and corrupting everything for his personal gain. Again, like Trump. Thankfully, Bond cuts the power to the feed at the breaker box. And this is the worst thing ever for Carver. Because, again, when you always get your way, you don't even know what to do with yourself when you don't. And you break down like a child. Again, just like Trump.
Mhm.
And this movie was ahead of its time.
Oh, absolutely. 100% ahead of its time.
Cutting to the Atlantic Hamburg Hotel, the interior of which is shot at Stoke Poges, where they shot Goldfinger's golf scene, we see Bond taking shot after shot of Smirnoff. He suppresses his Walther and waits. We cut again to Carver, who's acting like a baby. He then tells Paris he wants to know why her friend did this. She says she barely knows him, and Carver scoffs. Barely. He kisses her, and we cut back to Bond. As Paris enters the room, there was a little more to the scene with Paris and Carver, where he basically says, bullshit, I know you used to fuck him, now go fuck him again and get the info. Another cut scene that honestly should have stayed. Most of the scenes that were cut were right choices, but almost all of them that had to do with Carver took away from his character.
Well, yeah, if they cut out all of the character developing scenes for a guy, then no, his character will not develop.
Bond tells her to go home and say that she didn't get any dirt from him. She shuts the doors and says it's too late for that, and asks if she got too close. Bond, weakened, admits, yes. The orchestra swells with the refrain, and they eat each other's faces, and she drops her dress, and nice.
Nice. Terry Hatcher and garters, that's pretty hot.
We cut to Carver asking Gupta what he dug up on Bond at the bank, and Gupta says Bond's got a perfect record. 10 years, crossed every T, dotted every I. So he's a government agent. Gupta says if it's too good to be true, then it is. And this time, yeah, because it's written in a line, he's right. But normal people are model workers all the time, bro.
All the time. Not everybody's a government worker if they show up to work on time, do their job, and go home.
It is a good cause for suspicion, but not absolute deduction.
Like, I wouldn't have made that call.
Gupta also plays the clip for Carver of Paris asking if James still sleeps with a gun under his pillow. And this enrages Carver. He says they need to set an appointment for his wife with the doctor. He knew she was lying about barely knowing him, but knowing him that intimately and hiding it means that she's very untrustworthy and could easily flip sides, which she does. We cut to the same establishing shot of the docks that they've shown twice already, and then to Bond as Paris begs him to let Elliot go. But they both know he can't do that. So she gives him the info he pumped her for, a secret lab on the top floor of the building with an emergency hatch on the roof. Bond tries to stop her out of some pathetic attempt to show respect to their relationship. But fuck that. Take the info and stop World War III. It all feels forced anyways. These two have negative chemistry and I blame her.
You are not wrong to place the blame where you did, sir. I never understood, other than that she's pretty good looking,
She can't act.
why Terry Hatcher was as popular as she was. No, she can't. She couldn't act in Lois and Clark. She couldn't act in anything I've ever seen her in.
She can't act in Desperate Housewives.
Yeah,
No one likes her, ever on any set.
yeah.
She says, "Don't argue with me, James. You know, this job of yours, it's murder on relationships." Which is obviously on point for all the girls, but it's amazing foreshadowing for her own demise. His mission will cause her death. Now, also, this is a moment I want to point out that she is specifically the Bond girl that Sheryl Crow is singing through. This is exactly what the lyrics are saying. Everything she's been through with Bond, including her murder. She's been killed, waiting for him to return. This movie and its song are actually pretty clever sometimes. The song more clever than the movie. Never before have we ever had a song like this. They've always had lyrics that made no sense, lyrics that were thematically connected, or didn't have anything to do at all with the movie. But never before did we have lyrics that had anything to do specifically with everything going on in the movie, action by action, scene by scene, or any kind of from specific character in a movie, especially not sung from the perspective of a specific character in the movie, like we have here.
I'm not gonna diss the song, and the movie has some elements that I really, really enjoyed. I mean, like, really enjoyed. Like, there were some parts of this movie that were dope. But overall, it kind of falls flat.
She leaves, and we cut to Carver, brooding in the dark, presumably wishing My Chemical Romance would just exist already. We then cut to the presses and see Bond sneaking around the infrastructure of the building. Bond's phone also has an electronic master key, apparently. Q left that out of the pitch, so I'm calling it an ass gadget. Back to just pulling gadgets out of our asses, huh, Bond? Bond opens the hatch on the roof and enters the lab. He sees Gupta and goons looking at a satellite to be launched soon and waits for them to leave. He then goes to the office door and uses his taser to fry the lock, which could have just disabled the door locked or set off an alarm. And he just used an electronic master key.
Right?
And I just said this movie was clever.
So, yeah, every time this movie is like, does something clever, then it turns right around and does something unclever.
You have an electronic master key you just used on the last lock. Why did you taser this lock?
Because we need that taser special effects, buddy.
You're lucky that taser actually unlocked that door.
No. It was written that way.
The music gets less contemporary, and more specifically 90s for a moment as Bond finds a safe, scans the thumbprint scanner for the last print, and presses the display against the scanner. Inside he finds drugs, money, adult magazines, and a magic console that controls all satellites that just happens to fit in Bond's jacket pocket.
I like how he found everything in the safe that would in the 90s immediately identify the owner of this safe as a sleazebag.
As a bad guy.
Drugs, pornographic magazines, and money.
Bond hears someone trying to get in the door, and when it opens, it's Wei Lin, and she sets off the alarm. Guards rush in, and they both bolt in different directions. Bond runs to the escape hatch, and on the way, tips over the $300 million satellite that Gupta was so worried about. Bond shoots the electronic lock on the hatch to lock it, but by this movie's logic, it should be unlocked now. He darts into the building and sees Wei Lin. Bond is being shot at the whole time and kills one goon after jumping on a catwalk. And I love how they cannot hit him with autofire, but they seem to be perfectly hitting the thin metal railing in front of him with every shot.
Ah, it's that magic thin metal railing that acts as a bullet shield.
Oh, yeah.
It's the same kind of ladder Chris Hemsworth hid behind
Same material.
for 50 caliber bullets.
Bond is drawing all the fire and running in circles down the levels as he looks over angrily at Wei Lin. She put him in this position, and now she's just slowly being lowered by the wire crew and even waving at him. Bond's running through the presses, and when a guard catches him, they fight for a second when another guard jumps down just to be thrown into a paper pile. Oh no. Look out. Paper. They'll print anything these days, Bond says. Now, somehow this man died by being thrown in this paper hole. And if you could explain this, somehow, please comment somewhere else. The fight choreography is odd. The moves are good, but they're executed robotically and not really shot effectively in this sequence alone. The fight is also very short and pretty non-impactful, Or just silly, like with the instruments earlier.
The stunt coordination in this movie,
In the first act.
there's some flaws in the second act as well. Not as glaring or bad, but
I like the stunts in this movie.
I like most of the stunts in this movie.
I just think that these 2 early Bond fights could have used better choreography. It was a little stilted. These scenes were shot at 2 different English printers in real life. In universe, Bond escaped a couple more goons and exits the building. He gets in his car and is cruising along the Elbe when his phone rings. It's Carver, who tells Bond he has 2 items that belong to him, the red box and his wife, at Bond's hotel. Bond drives to his hotel, being made by Stamper along the way. In the parking lot, he stows the box and grabs his gun. He sets the Batman Returns car security and walks inside, checking his 6 the whole way.
Did you ever notice how Stamper kind of looks like a psychotic Neil Patrick Harris?
A little bit. He kind of looks like Dolph Lundgren's little brother to me. Stamper watches from a rooftop and radios his men to tell him when they find the encoder. Inside, Bond finds his door ajar and Telly playing a news tribute to Paris Carver to be released the next hour. He finds Paris dead on his bed and holds her, as Tomorrow's News Today warns him that an unidentified male was also found with a self-inflicted gun wound next to Paris. And just then, Bond hears a man say, "I have a clear shot at your head, Mr. Bond. Stand up slowly. Drop your gun and kick it toward me, yeah?" Now Bond does this, and the man tells him to lie down next to Mrs. Carver. This is Dr. Kaufman, played by Vincent Scavelli.
Whose favorite appearance of mine was always being Ghost.
He's an odd but skilled hitman. But before we get into that, we see some goons, shocked to find the car is protected by Q Branch. With that inserted, back to the doctor, who gloats about his skills. Back to the goons, now with sledgehammers and crowbars. They hold the items against the car, then rip away very fast, and then reverse the footage. I mean, they smash the car and nothing happens. Not even a micro crack.
No dents, no scratches. I don't know what this car is made out of, but Q Branch needs to spread that shit around.
Vibranium?
Right? After I got shocked 2 times by this car, discovered that sledgehammers and bullets don't work on it, I'd walk away.
Back to the doctor, who makes sure Bond knows that her death is on him, and that he's a professor of forensic medicine who can shoot him from Stuttgart and make it look like a suicide. Another one of those I'm fake as hell trying to be cool lines, like I've broken every bone in my body twice. I've actually had someone say that to me.
Evil Knievel didn't break every bone in his body.
You would be dead. You break your spine once and live it, you're lucky. Come on.
Right?
Back to the goons, now shooting the car and not even a scratch, and it's important to remember that. Back to the doctor, now taking credit for all the celebrity overdoses. Thanks a lot. Give us Michael Jackson and Mac Miller and Prince back, you piece of shit. He goes to shoot Bond, but Stamper radios him just in time to ask Bond to disable the car's security. The doctor is mortified. This is beneath his version of professionalism. He asks Bond about the red box, even though Stamper never said anything about that in the insert, and tells Bond to unlock the car or he'll torture him.
He played the part perfectly. It was kind of funny, a little bit, but the tonal shifts throughout this movie were weird, man.
Bond reaches for his phone to unlock the car, but the doctor pulls a red Grant and says, "I'll do it." Bond gives him the phone and says, "Recall 3, send." And the doctor does none of that shit. It pushes the up arrow and it electrocutes his ass anyways, because we're moving on here.
Right?
Bond jumps up and grabs the doctor by the gun arm and forces the doctor down while pushing the gun towards the doctor's head. The doctor begs for his life, saying he's just a professional, doing a job. And Bond looks pissed. He says, "So am I." So fucking cold, and then pulls the trigger with the gun pressed against the side of the man's head, fulfilling the news, because he wanted to do something nice for Carver.
This may have been the coldest scene in a Bond movie since kicking the car off the cliff, in my opinion.
All jokes aside, that's the coldest kill so far, in my opinion, period.
Yeah.
That was cold as fuck.
He's like, "Oh, don't kill me, I'm a professional." He's like, "Me too." Pow, shoots him right in the fucking face.
Point blank in the head.
Yeah.
That was dope.
That was dope.
I just don't understand why he went out of his way to make Carver's news story accurate, like it was a GoldenEye game mission that he had to achieve the objective.
Yeah, I know, that's kind of weird.
Why'd he care? Think about it. Like, it's cool he did it, but if you think about it for 5 seconds, it's like, why'd he care?
Right.
Bond kisses Paris's corpse a few more times, and then he egresses to the roof in view of Stamper. Bond then hides out of sight in the parking lot and activates the remote control of his vehicle. He starts it up and drives it towards him, dropping the rear window before diving into the back. Now, this is an exciting sequence, shot in a shopping center in London, but it's also kind of dumb. Bond drives from his phone in the back, around the lot while they shoot at him and chase him. Now the car gets damaged easily, and bullets crack and blow out the windscreen. Bond fires a missile at their roadblock for a nice explosion. Did I say Nokia earlier? Sorry. Shameless Ericsson plug.
Huh. It is an Ericsson, isn't it?
Bond drops tire tacks and dodges an RPG by his windscreens being shot out, which shouldn't have been possible. Oh, and as always, the RPG takes out the pursuing car instead. How dare you guys even try?
Yeah, well, you shoot an RPG through a hole instead of aiming at the body of the vehicle you're shooting at. You shoot it at the windshield with a hole in it. It's guaranteed to work.
They even try a steel cable to decapitate him, but even the BMW badge hides many power saws. Who thought of that in the Q lab? Who the fuck was sitting around in the Q lab and was like, you know what this car needs?
A mini saw just in case somebody tries to decapitate you.
Who the fuck thought of that?
I had the exact same thought when that popped up. I was like, saws in the car, huh?
Why, though? What were you thinking when you installed it? What did you think was going to happen? What were you prepared for?
What is that for?
Bond grabs the red box and dives out of the car when no one is looking, conveniently. So now, the last car chases his driverless car to the top of the lot, where his car drives off the edge, landing in the lobby of the Avis rental across the street. The goons barely stop their Mercedes in time to teeter on the edge. The car leap was filmed on location in Hamburg. There's another deleted bit here where Bond goes to the crowd around the crashed car and tells the Avis lady that he left the keys in there, which was cut for a reason.
Because it's stupid?
Because it's stupid as fuck.
And there's already a bunch of stupid in this movie?
Fuck that.
Fuck that.
We then cut to an American airbase near the South China Sea. Bond arrives in full naval uniform and is greeted by Wade. Yo, Jimbo! Oh my god, they did it again. His name is James, not Jimmy or Jimbo. Rage, rage, rage. I want to have sex with Connery's toupee.
Calm down. I like it when he calls him Jimbo.
Oh, I love it too.
I think Jack Wade may be my favorite CIA guy over Felix Leiter.
Bond asks Wade what he's doing there, and as always, he isn't. We aren't involved. Here, I brought that GPS calibration unit you need. Joe Don Baker is in his third Bond film here, and continuing Brosnan's analog for Felix. He's never not a delight. Now, despite Wade sporting a floral shirt, the airbase at Okinawa is really RAF Lakenheath in Suffolk. The sea landing they're about to do uses the giant tank built for James Cameron's Titanic in Baja California, Mexico. And while we're on the subject, negotiations to film in Vietnam fell through, and the Saigon scenes are actually Bangkok, Thailand.
I heard they had to fucking leave at the airport. I heard they made it all the way to Vietnam with all their shit.
Negotiations fell through at the very last second.
Yeah.
Colin Stinton plays Dr. Greenwald, the device expert. Bond shows them both the encoder he picked up in Hamburg yesterday morning. Greenwald is stunned. Wade giggles. You can tell Stinton is English playing the American doctor here. When Bond asks if the device can trick ships' GPS locations, Greenwald says, like the Devonshire? Like a Brit. Highlighted by Baker's Wade saying it like an American. Whoa, whoa, no one said anything about the Devonshire. The doctor explains, you fuck with the timing of a GPS, it'll slowly move things off course, like a magnet beside a compass. When they plug the Carver encoder into a terminal, they see that his GPS map is way off. Bond tells the doctor to use the shifted map and the position that the Devonshire thought she was at to pinpoint where she actually sank. He then asks Wade for a small favor, and we cut to an establishing exterior of an in-flight Fairchild provider. The tail opens, and we cut inside to see Bond suiting up to do the halo jump that everyone went nuts for in Mission Impossible. But again, Bond did it first.
Again, Bond did it first.
Al Matthews plays the immortal character of Master Sergeant No. 3, giving Bond a crash course in not dying in the most fatal way to skydive. He tells Bond what to do to live and says he'll be dropping from 5 miles up, or about 28,000 feet. Now, B.J. Worth, stalwart aerial stuntman of the series, did a 14,000-foot drop max for the Halo shoot, which is half the mark, but still half the cruising altitude of a 737 and fucking impressive.
Oh, definitely impressive.
What's also impressive is that a cameraman did it with him.
Yeah, that's also impressive. I always think about that with skydive stunts.
Wade tells him when he's accomplished his mission to activate his beacon and an extraction team will get him out after dark. Just before Bond jumps, they realize where the ship sank was actually Vietnamese waters. But he's gone. He didn't even say goodbye, Wade huffs.
That's funny. Wade loves James Bond.
Yeah, he does.
I'm pretty sure.
He wanted to be best friends with him.
Yeah.
But don't we all?
No. I mean, I guess, but not really.
Bond was told he'd be going over 200 miles an hour, but to pull his chute low to avoid radar. And he also needs to cut his chute before hitting the water so not to drown. But the way that they cut all of this in the editing room made it look like he pulled and cut his chute in literally the same second and then just hit the water a half a second after that. Rip James.
Rip, because you're hitting liquid concrete at that speed.
Exactly. But he's fine and landed right next to the ship, so he just swims in through the drill hole. Somehow, Bond swimming through this has disturbed the wreck enough to force a large chunk of the rocky edge the ship is resting on to just crumble away. Dun dun.
Yeah, I was wondering about that too. It's like, how much is he disturbing that ship by swimming in it?
Right. Ow.
Like, he's not touching anything.
That's a lot of weight.
Yeah. Yeah, and I don't think a single diver with swim fins has enough energy to move a fucking frigate.
Bond finds floating bodies with good color to them and remarkably no decay. Looks like the crabs haven't even gotten to them yet somehow.
Yeah, nothing's been in there.
Even though it has giant holes.
Those guys look like they were practically holding their breath.
In the torpedo room, Bond finds a cruise missile has been stolen. Dun dun dun.
Didn't they suspect this at first?
Yeah, probably so, but now we know.
But now we know for sure.
Just then, Wei Lin pokes Bond with a harpoon. Now, why'd she poke him? And I want you to think about this for a second, because she didn't know it was Bond, because they immediately fought for a second before like, oh, it's you. More pressing, though, than all of this, the ship is sliding over the edge now. Chaos ensues, and they become trapped in the room after everything slides over the hatch. So they ditch their tanks and slide through a vent to escape the ship and swim to the surface, and god damn, they can swim fast.
Right? And nitrogen narcosis isn't a thing either.
No, the bins doesn't exist in a universe without physics, okay?
And the other thing that I thought about too is like, I know some people who've done some cave diving. Why didn't they just attach their tanks behind them? There's a whole lot of things that they could have done a little bit differently to live.
They break the surface, and she calls her man waiting on a trawler, who is immediately harpooned from behind by a revealing stamper and carelessly tossed overboard. Damn.
So much for your allies. That's why I don't want to be friends with any of these people.
That's why I don't want to be friends with Bond. Yeah, it's not a good option.
It's not a good thing.
They're taken away, and a Eurocopter Echo will too. Inside, she accuses him of following her around, even though she has always shown up after him, wherever he is. He says, well, we have developed an attachment to each other, and establishes the handcuffs for the camera.
Yeah, why did they handcuff them together and not, like, bring two pair of handcuffs?
So they could do those cool stunts later on the motorcycle.
Oh.
Flying into, not Saigon, they see a huge Carver building with an unreal portrait of his face along the side. You didn't like vitamin D while you work here, did you?
Right. Can I work on the other side of the office? Because I get no natural light on this side.
As this is actually Bangkok, Thailand, that building is really the Banyan Tree Bangkok. And as they're being led to Carver's office, she recognizes an exiting General Chang, played by Philip Kwok. Arriving, Carver tells Bond that he's just in time to help him write this branch's first story, Bond and Lin's obits. Bond twists that he hoped Carver extended the same courtesy to his wife, to which Carver blames Bond for her death. And they're both right. She's such a tragic character, she really is, and the biggest tragedy of all was that she was played by a desperate housewife.
That is the biggest tragedy of all, because she is truly a tragic character.
Because honestly, the character itself and what they were going for could have been really special.
Had that been Monica Bellucci, oh my god.
This would have been an all-time character.
Right? I felt so bad and sad, and I felt mad. I'm mad.
I'm mad about this.
I am. I'm mad that this movie could have been very, very much better.
There's so much potential here, and none of it was executed well. And the fact that Pierce Brosnan tried to fight them to hire Monica Bellucci over this girl and called them fools because he knew the decision they made and the impact it was going to have.
Yeah.
Bond tries to bluff his way out of death, but Carver calls his bluff, backed by snappy headlines. He rather likes the last one, and it isn't even his.
The Empire will strike back. Yeah.
Carver's bit is the pen is mightier than the sword, but in the information age, even more so. He thinks his propaganda can overpower governments. And he's right. Look at January 6th. But of course what he wants is just to rule it all. If words are the new stick, he just wants to be the guy holding the biggest, shiniest one. It's very low imagination for such a power. And yeah, rule the world is a big-time dream, but it's cliché and one-dimensional.
It is. It is cliché and one-dimensional. His methods were on point. His motivation was all over the place.
He does have a god complex that they literally spell out in this scene, and Price definitely plays him detached from reality. Bond calls him insane, because he is, and Carver says the difference between insanity and genius is measured only by success. And yup, that's exactly what a sociopath would say.
That is exactly what a sociopath would say.
Stamper shows off his chakra torture tools and says Dr. Kaufman was his mentor, like a father to him. And Bond just ridicules his choice of role model. The tools attack certain vital parts of the body in ways to exact pain while staving off death for as long as possible. Dr. Kaufman's record was 52 hours, and Stamper is hoping to break it.
To me, those tools just look like weird, stabby knives. And who tortures chakras?
Idiots that think Saturn is controlling their behavior.
Yeah, exactly. That's not even a Chinese thing.
It's a stupid thing. I'm out of here. Bond digs that watching Carver's shows are torture enough, and Carver goes to leave, and Bond kicks the table, starting their escape fight while still handcuffed together. And I got lost for a second, and I thought I was watching Rush Hour.
For a second there, you were.
They spin around, and she does awesome moves. Bond throws a torture blade into its owner's thigh, and damn, dude, that went deep into your thigh. You better get that wrapped up and checked out quick, just in case.
I don't understand how he's walking the next day.
You're gonna bleed to death, homie, in minutes.
You've had serious trauma to your quadricep or your hamstring. How are you walking?
Bond grabs an SMG and lays down cover fire while he just stands straight up and slowly walks along. He's barely holding the gun. He looks like he's having a stroll. I know he's trying to look cool and effortless, but it looks really stupid.
It does look kind of stupid.
It had no weight, no recoil. The way his wrist was holding that, I was like, bro.
It looks like he's using a toy gun.
They shoot out a window and dive out of it, just somehow knowing, I guess, that they wouldn't just keep dropping from the skyscraper. It's not like they took the time to look down.
Right? How do you know the layout of the skyscraper so well?
Man, that is a hell of a leap of faith.
That's super leap of faith.
But there is a little edge thing under this top floor, and there they grab the two middle rows holding the banner and cut them with a convenient butcher's knife from a convenient toolbox next to them. They then grab a rope each and jump. Again, without any real plan or forethought, just leaps of faith off a fucking skyscraper with no hesitation.
Well, I guess that's the super spy business?
I guess. I'm out. I'm about to quit. If that's what it takes.
If that's what it takes.
The banner rips perfectly, and they descend at a decent speed, and it gets them almost twice the length of the banner, but they still have nowhere to go but down. Bond says next time he'll take the lift. And then they swing back and forth to do the old burst through the skyscraper window trick from Die Hard.
Right.
But without shooting the window a bunch first. And do you know why John McClane shot that window before trying to swing through it? Because those windows are thick as fuck and usually tempered.
So people don't jump out of skyscrapers.
Or they don't break from atmospheric pressure as well. The high winds.
I'm just curious as why the banner didn't tear with all that extra momentum and activity on it.
Hey, they really did a good job on reinforcing that hem.
Apparently.
But they break through, and everyone is pissed, but y'all could have opened the window. Outside, she wants a car, but he demands a bike as it's quicker. So of course, there's the brand new and sponsor-appropriate 1997 BMW R1200 for them to take off in. Once they get situated, of course.
So, what are the odds of there being a German motorcycle in a Chinese city?
Hey, this is Saigon, Vietnam.
Oh, sorry, Vietnamese city. And it's brand new. Just found it weird.
With her behind him, her left hand steers and hits the clutch. His right hand steers and hits the gas. And their other hands just wrap around each other in a really nice and tender way, because they're still cuffed. They continue to argue about what to do and which direction to take. The Bond theme hits and the chase is on. Black Range Rovers immediately take each other out as Bond winds through the alleyways. Bikes and shops get damaged. People almost get shot in blind auto fire. Fuck civilians.
Yeah, no. Civilians aren't really a thing.
The motorbike chase roars along Tannery Row and Mahogany Wharf, Bangkok, with the end of the sequence shot on a set built at Eon Studios. Now back in the chase, Bond asks how many are chasing him, and she does some crazy Cirque du Soleil shit to get in front of him. And she then grabs a hook, drags barrels, oil pots, fucking fireworks into the rover's path. Boom.
Boom, indeed. I think that the barrels and everything just distracted it into a fireworks truck, because why wouldn't there be a fireworks truck in the middle of the street?
Why wouldn't there be? It's Saigon. They're lousy with them.
They're lousy with fireworks trucks.
Boom, take that, Vietnam, my louse joke.
It's just a bunch of random Anglo writers who have no understanding of Asian culture.
It's just a bunch of lazy, dumb writers. They know almost nothing but tropes, stereotypes, and cliches.
Right.
Still being chased and shot at, though, Bond pops a wheelie onto a pile of trash that he rides onto the roofs of slum shacks, again, trusting physics just do not work in this universe. He rides into the window and room of a bigger building, shocking its tenant. They ride on more rooftops, and the chopper that took them to the building is chasing and shooting at them now. Bond hides in a rooftop shack with women ironing clothes, and the chopper lowers over the street to look for them, even though they can just easily see them if they look over as they descend.
Yeah, I know. I thought they were lining up for a shot in the building, but no, that's not what they're doing.
At first I did too.
No, they were lining up for a shot of the helicopter, or the motorcycle jumping the helicopter.
Lynn moves to the back again for balance, and they bust it out of the shack to get some running speed and then rush back in full steam. They break the railing and drive over the rampless edge, still somehow getting their nose up.
You've never done a bunny hop on a 400-pound motorcycle?
I was about to say, yeah, no, I haven't. They really jumped that bike in real life from rooftop to rooftop, with a ramp though, over a real helicopter, and the only thing that was added later was the rotors. After landing, the bike breaks through the roof, finally, and still somehow works just fine. There's not even a rattle or a dent.
They even stay on it.
I'm here to tell you that you can drop a bike from a standing position and ruin it.
Easily.
In fact, you're lucky if you didn't.
This is true.
They are still being pursued and shot at, though, and we get some more video game physics as the platforms break away after being driven on and not when the weight is on them. But I'll take video game physics over no physics. Bond rides down, crushing a shameless Heineken plug, and the chopper goes full Agent Sedgwick in GTA Vice City. He gets low and tilts his blades to go after the agent, and as psychotic as that is, the street is a marketplace packed with innocent people about to get Vic Morrowed.
Too soon.
Really?
No, not really.
It's 40 years.
I know. That one still hurts a little bit. They were kids.
The rotors being again the only thing they added in post, again employing the helicopter on a pole technique. They get away for a moment, and she gets in front of the bike again. At this point, they're just showing off that they can do it.
No fucking helicopter pilot would ever do anything so stupid. Use his rotors like a saw, because they don't work like that.
You would kill yourself.
Props would break.
They get cornered by the chopper, who loves hovering, feet off the ground, just begging to clip something. Bond grabs the metal anchor of a laundry line that he is very glad was not bolted in. He then rides at the chopper some 200 to 300 feet away with the longest laundry line ever, lays the bike down, slides underneath, then gets up and grabs the line again because he dropped it and throws it into the tail rotor, causing the chopper to crash perfectly level into the building next to it. So less like it lost the ability to keep stable flight and more like it got pushed into a stage facade. It doesn't even fall, it just kind of rocks a little.
Oh. And it was kind of miraculous that it crashed into a building filled with explosives.
It does explode, though, and we fade to black before finding our heroes showering in the street together. Now, they worked up a sweat walking casually through gunfights and riding a motorcycle.
Oh, yeah. You get dirty.
This scene is a rope-a-dope for the audience. He pulls her close to wash her hair, and she tells him not to get any ideas, which she also said on the bike earlier. You think they're getting intimate just for her to pick her side of the handcuffs and cuff him to a pipe when he goes for his kiss. She works alone. The pipe is held together with duct tape and rubber bands, though, so it's cool.
It looked more like duct tape on a sock.
She steals a shirt and a bike and rides off. Bond looks for her on the street and sees some nefarious peeps rolling out onto a spot and makes the shot collar. Cutting inside, the goons swarm in, and Lin beats the ever-loving shit out of them kung fu style. They're trying to add a little bit of that Chinese cinema spice to this. There's some awesome choreography here, and this is one of the best fight sequences we've had so far in that regard. Outside, Bond decks the shot collar on the street. Inside, she is still just beating everyone's ass. She's a bamf.
I really appreciate the fact that they put a decent wushu scene in this movie because they had Michelle Yeoh, famous for changing the wushu game in China. I don't like the fact that I don't think they used a wushu fight choreographer because a lot of her movements look stilted and waiting for her stuntmen to get their shit together. But it still had Michelle Yeoh in it, so it was fucking outstanding. I'm not going to knock it.
She even fights her way out of being jumped while being strangled, then runs up a column and backflips over the strangler to beat the shit out of him. She is smearing all of them, and some of them are stupid enough to get back up. Outside, Bond lights up another dude's cigarette before punching him out. Why is that your thing in this movie? Inside, the last goon grabs his gun, but Bond sneaks up and does the old tap-tap-punch combo. The goon sells it so well, even taking out the railing when he spin-dove onto it. 9 out of 10.
9 out of 10. And once again, Asian stunt performers putting in the work.
Bond's all, "You're welcome," and she's all, "I had it." But Bond points out that these were Chinese army, and it's obvious that Chang wants her dead. He uses this to insist on their partnership, because he knows how his partnerships end. With unpaid child support. Boom! She shows him her earring and says that they found stealth material, not specific as to what, was missing from one of Chang's bases that they traced to Carver. She says they think he's building a stealth plane, but Bond deduces that they made a stealth boat, and that's how they got to the Devonshire and stole its cruise missile. But Bond is right. She says Chang was moving his ops to midnight tonight. Bond says they're going to sneak between the British fleet and fire the missile into China, to which China will retaliate. Carver will provide the pictures. Cool. Is that really all he's getting out of this? Perpetual exclusivity? You see what I mean about how he's small in his ambition? He has set himself up for amazing potential personal outcome in terms of political power from this, and he just wants to air the news first? This guy is squandering a great plan on his lack of imagination.
On his total lack of imagination. 100 years of exclusive business in China? How are you benefiting from that? What do you got, 30, 40 years left?
Right?
Tops?
You're already silver-haired.
Right.
And you don't act like you give a shit about your descendants. You're a narcissist.
You just murdered your wife, so you don't give a shit about kids.
Lynn hits the switch that pops out the computers and weapons from her base. Bond goes to type a message, but the keyboard is in Chinese, so he kits out instead. He also accidentally sets off a gimmick dragon statue / flamethrower. Very novel. He also finds that they made a counterfeit version of his watch, with some improvements, she adds, and then he jacks it.
Oh yeah, he straight sticks that in his pocket. Waits till she's not looking.
He also pulls a paper fan and Spider-Man goes ham on a dummy. He's a big fan of Chinese tech.
Aren't we all?
She says there's 4 places that they could harbor a boat like that, and Bond takes out Gun Goon, who got up again, but this time with an airbag. Bond then tells her to cross-reference yada yada find the boat. Bond finds a modern Walther and laments Q never giving him one, and him being stuck with the same gun the first chap got in the early 60s.
That modern Walther is a beautiful pistol, by the way.
I actually want that.
I have never heard anybody talk badly about the modern Walther.
The touching piano refrain hits, and they look at each other for a second. Then she says she found them in How Long Bay. We then cut to the man with the golden gun, How Long Bay, which is Phang Na Bay, in Thailand, among the limestone towers familiar from that previous adventure.
So familiar, in fact, I thought they used the same plates.
For a second there, I thought they went to the same bay.
Right? That looked almost identical.
My charter's a junk from a fisherman that says the island is dangerous and no one goes there, but for $5,000 I got you, homie. Bond hopes he'll take a check, which apparently he does, because we fade to them kidding up on the junk mid-transit. They do the whole decadent Western agent partnering with a communist Easterner again, because they can still do it with a Chinese character, and they never left a dead horse unwhipped.
No, let's beat that horse to death.
They also set up the mines they're carrying. So they board the motor raft that they towed and depart the junk to search the bay. As the sun is setting, they spot the stealth boat coming out and make for it. They ride underneath the boat and tie up with Bond telling her to set timers for 10 minutes. So watch him, Lynn. He might drop that by like 75 seconds and burn half your face.
Oh, let's not forget Dear Sweet 006.
They keep blatantly expositing to the effect of, if the ship doesn't sink, it'll still show up on radar, and our governments will do the rest if they got the message. And do explosions show up on radar? I never thought about that.
The explosion, not itself, but a disruption in the hull, could show up as something small on radar.
That's what I thought of. It was like maybe he was saying the damaged ship will lose its stealth capabilities, and if so, how does he know that? Like, did he read the script? Like, a high probability is not a guarantee. As they set mines, we cut to the bridge of the ship and see Carver with Gupta and goons. Carver says fire a missile at each fleet. They'll both blame each other, and the media will provide objective coverage. What? I can't even tell if he's being sarcastic or just delusional, and it doesn't help that he follows it up with the "let the mayhem begin" line.
Right? His whole thing is not objective coverage.
Missiles are away, and we see a toy boat and a tiny explosion. Back on the bridge of the stealth boat, Carver looks at a monitor and flips out. What the hell do I pay you for? He points to Lynn on CCTV and says if she's there, Bond is here. Stamper, find him. They cut out the bit of Stamper stomping this dude for this error. Outside, Lynn is setting a mine when Stamper grabs her and slams her head into the metal ceiling. He leaves her with goons and takes another goon to find Bond. And Bond tosses one goon into the water and then stabs another before taking his firearm. As Stamper sneaks up, Bond blind fires on him from a corner and then holds out the stabbed goon's corpse like the Looney Tunes hat on a stick bit. He even somehow has the strength to just bob him up and down like, oh, I'm going for a walk, and then tosses it into the water when it's shot.
It was perfect.
Stupid.
For a stupid movie.
How could he hold him like that? That's steady and perfect.
Right? With one hand.
With one hand.
His full body weight.
Just like leaning out from the side, too, against cover.
Right?
Stamper falls for this and fires, thinking he's killed Bond as Bond sneaks inside. Stamper radios Carver that Bond is dead, and Carver says, delicious, and then does something Alec Trevelyan was too stupid to do. Orders his man to collect the mines, then bring him the girl.
There you go.
That's all you had to do.
That's all you had to do.
Gupta questions Carver wanting the girl on the bridge, but Carver loves an audience. My issue with this guy is they never nail down what kind of mental instability he has and shows varying behaviors linked to a few different ones.
It muddles his motivation because you can't nail down what his issue is. Other than he wants to rule the world? Kinda?
Like his initial setup, his initial like building blocks made him feel so real. Like this is something real people do, can do, have done, will continue to do. And then as you get more and more into his behavior and lines, they start to become really mentally conflicting.
Right.
Carver gloats to Lynn that the MiGs are on their way to the Brits. He also gloats that Bond is dead at the bottom of the sea as his new anchor man. And she loses her shit, and he gets racially offensive. But Bond isn't dead, and the governments did get the messages. Bond grabs a jar and sneaks around. Carver monologues. When the MiGs strike the Brits, he'll send the cruise missile to Beijing, where General Chang just called an emergency meeting with High Command. Chang will be late, of course, arriving just after the missile kills the Chinese leaders. Bond takes his knockoff watch apart and tapes a blinking circuit to the jar that he then stuffs a spoon grenade into, and he puts the jar on some flammable tanks to top it off. Lynn asks Carver what he gets out of this, and he says exclusive broadcasting rights in China for 100 years. Wow. Look out. We really need to prevent that.
like, okay, yeah, okay, and?
And? Tell me you're not doing all this for that.
Right. Please tell me that wasn't the only part. You're getting 100 years of broadcasting rights in China and...
Bond has captured Gupta and lets Carver know that he's alive. He repeats the "I have something that belongs to you" line because the director's idea of setup and payoff is just repeating the same lines.
Apparently.
Bond comes out with Gupta hostage and offers a trade for Lynn. Carver goes from egomaniac to megalomaniac when he says great men have often manipulated the news to save the world. Okay, Trump.
But that's not what you're doing.
He's mad, though.
Yeah.
In his mind, he is. Unfortunately for Gupta, he's already set up the missile to fire, so Carver just shoots his ass. So Bond has his watch fire the charge attached to the jar, freeing the grenade from its spoon and blowing the fuck out of the boat.
I love how he found a perfectly sized jar to fit a grenade.
Yeah, it was very convenient.
Yeah.
Lynn breaks for it. Bond runs to her. SMG's akimbo. He does the effortless, cool shooting spree thing again, but it actually looks how he wanted it to this time, and it's pretty badass.
Yeah, it was much better.
Mostly because he's not walking, he's standing there.
Using the straps to brace the machine guns?
You should still take cover, though.
Well.
And not behind flammable tanks.
Plot armor. It's pretty thick.
The Brits and Chinese now see the ship and are taking proper action. Back with Lynn, she has a hallway fight scene and a shuriken in her heel. Well, now it's in his neck.
One of the most useless ninja weapons ever invented. Sorry.
Yeah, tell it to Butters. She goes to stop the boat and he heads to stop the missile. The Brits are closing and flaring the ship to see it. Carver demands to prep launch immediately, giving us a 5-minute ticking clock. But the Brits are firing at them, and Lynn is shooting everyone on her way down below. She even shoots the ship. That'll unlock it.
That's how we unlock things in this movie. Or turn them off.
Lynn stops the ship, and Bond lets her get swarmed by goons so he can sneak by. He still has a bunch of his own to get into a gunfight with, though. The Bond theme plays an odd version that's trying to sound classic, but with a twist on certain notes. And I also want to mention that the sound mixing hurts my fucking ears. The gunshots and explosions in this movie are blown out, and it's terrible.
It's pretty bad. Everything is way too loud.
Except for the dialogue.
And you can't hear the dialogue.
Bond takes control of the ship's small missile launcher and destroys the ship from the inside with it. Lynn is shooting people and gets a John Woo low-frame slow-mo insert. She's out of ammo and cornered. Maybe if James shot those dudes in the back when they ran past saying they were going for her.
Maybe. But nah, he didn't have time for that. Ain't nobody got time for that.
Stamper's launching grenades and shooting at Bond. Bond's strafing around, dual-wielding like it's a video game. And he literally takes cover behind explosive tanks. Again. Wow.
But they won't blow up.
Yet.
Till they need to.
Carver stands in disbelief watching it all burn. Lynn has 2 unspent rounds and dives out, shooting the smoke machine hoses to escape. The British Navy hits the stealth ship and it is going down. Men jump into the water. Carver dribbles. Stamper cocks his gun and fires at the tanks over the rubble Bond's trapped under. But it's Bond, and he survives that.
Does nobody go look for the body?
Nope.
Not one time.
That's effort.
Yeah.
Stamper finds Lynn and takes her hostage again. Because, damn it, this is a James Bond film. Bond walks like he doesn't give a fuck and murders some more dudes who don't care their ship is sinking when Carver hits him from behind with his gun. Bond says, "Breaking news," and hits the switch for the drill torpedo and holds Carver in front of it before diving away when it crunches him to paste.
Yeah, a ridiculous kill for a ridiculous villain.
Bond jumps on the missile with a minute to stop it. He starts screwdriving with his knife, but Stamper says, "Drop it, or I drop her." Because this is personal for Stamper now.
Oh, yeah.
Lynn tosses Bond the detonators, and he sticks them on the missile's exhaust port. Stamper drops her chain-wrapped ass into the sea and jumps on the missile platform to fight Bond. 40 seconds now, even though it's been a minute in real life.
There's also kind of a continuity issue here, too. It's like, weren't they planting mines?
Yeah, but a home dude collected them.
And gave Lynn back the detonators?
She had these backup detonators in case she got caught. I don't know. It's a giant plot hole. Lynn is holding her breath. They're fighting. Stamper owes Bond an unpleasant death, and Bond stabs his arm and his chest, and then pins Stamper's foot with the missile before punching him some more and trying to slide away. But Stamper grabs his vest and says, "We die together." But Bond cuts his vest away and dives into the sea toward Wei Lin. He kisses air into her, and the missile sets off the detonators, which set the missile off, killing Stamper. Bond rescues Lynn, the orchestra swells, and our heroes scramble aboard some floating, flaming wreckage. The Bedford shines a spotlight on them, and we do the John Woo slow-mo again. She says, "Don't get any ideas, Mr. Bond," one more time. Bond says, "Let's stay undercover." And we end with him and her getting it on the water, the way God intended Bond films to end.
Well, there you go. Checklist complete.
I'm giving this movie a C+.
C+?
This movie is everything you've heard or feel, no matter what you've heard or feel. It's a great movie and a bad one. It's a before its time classic, and it's schlock. This movie would be one of the best of all time if they just had a different director and Monica Bellucci as Paris, and I'm going to leave it there.
I'm not going to disagree with any of your points. I'm going to give this movie a B-. There's a lot right with this movie, but there's equal parts wrong. Everything is almost right there, but just not quite. This movie falls short, and I was thinking throughout this whole movie, it's like, I gotta blame the director for this bullshit.
You really should, and he admits it himself.
It's not poorly acted, except by Terry Hatcher.
Literally one bad egg in the acting. The rest of it's great. The writing, yeah, but a good director could have tweaked that.
Right. The writing had some spots, but yes, a good director would have fixed all of that.
The potential for this movie left on the floor is incredibly sad.
It is. It is.
This could have easily been the best.
A perfect follow-up to GoldenEye.
And the bar was so high after GoldenEye.
Yeah.
And this was so disappointing.
It was. It was. On so many different levels.
For the kill count, how many do you think Bond kills in this movie?
I wasn't actually counting this time because it started with explosions. So I'm just going to say about 120 people died in this movie.
Bond kills 30. 24 other die for a total of 54.
I just know they're killing everybody in this movie. They didn't give a shit. They were killing fucking civilians and running people over. Everybody dies.
For the pre-title. The pre-title has a jaw-dropping stunt sequence of the jets ripping low through the mountains. The rest was just trying to be cool and coming off silly. It was very underwhelming after the last film for me. It was very much all style over substance and all about the spectacle. 9th place.
For me, this pre-title sequence, and I read that this was originally written for The Living Daylights. For me, this pre-title sequence was Michael Bay. And you know how I feel about Michael Bay. It's just explosions for the sake of explosions.
Even when it doesn't make sense.
Right. Even when it doesn't make sense. And that's not good storytelling. I give it 8th place.
The title. The titles were executed flawlessly by a guy who had nothing but experience making music videos. The song is very clever and quite catchy to me, but the titles themselves feel a little hollow. At least he has something he was going for, though it wasn't that deep. 8th place.
I enjoyed the title sequence. I really like the song. Like I said, I like the arrangement, the composition. The color palette was pretty dope too, if you didn't notice. I love those blues and circuitry patterns. It looked great. But something about Sheryl Crow singing that fucking song really annoyed me. And it was just a little messy. Like the opening thing, I was like, am I looking at a pool of sperm or is that chicks in a... Oh, okay. Yeah. So I gave it a 9th place overall.
Moneypenny pickup line. Moneypenny tells Bond he'll have to pump Paris, and he says, if only that were true of you and me. And that's it. But again, it's something at least. 9th place.
I happen to like the scene with Moneypenny, and Bond in the car. That whole scene was dripping with entendre the whole time, as I assume most English people do when they get together like that. The interaction with Moneypenny is always good. And I really like this Moneypenny. I forgot how much I kind of had a crush on this girl. So I gave this one a 5th place.
Q gadgets. Q gives Bond a car and a remote control phone / taser / master key / fingerprint scanner. Just really one Swiss Army gadget, honestly. 9th place.
I gave this one 3rd place because we're starting to get into the more gadgety aspects of Bond movies.
Oh, that's what Brosnan's Bond is known for. That's why they killed it, because it got so bad.
Yes, because it got real bad, right? But I really enjoy Q, and I really enjoy Q gadgets.
Cars. The 1997 BMW 750. Remote controlled with all the doodads. It's a car that Bond drives and does shit with. Plays with all the gadgets. 13th place.
Wow, really?
I hate this fucking car, this ugly-ass fucking grandma-ass piece of shit.
I remember when this movie came out and the trailer was that whole part with Q going over the insurance brochure and then flashing to the car and explosions. I gave this car 4th place because this is the only other really working spy car in a Bond movie that they really kind of showcase.
Main ally, Jack Wade again. His part is severely diminished in this one, and when he laments Bond not saying goodbye, that's the last we see of Wade. But he brought Bond the goods, the boffins, and the halos. 12th place.
I gave Wade 7th place because he's Wade. It's Jack Wade. He does all the things that is necessary of a proper CIA agent to do, including not be there.
Villains, Elliot Carver, media mogul who can't decide what type of crazy he is, but essentially, he just wants to be the news, and no one else can have any. He's a spoiled Orwellian narcissistic sociopath that's become detached through denial and sycophancy. On the other hand, he's unimaginative, unambitious, stupid, childish, non-threatening, and easily manipulated. 15th place.
He wasn't that bad.
He was terrible.
He was all of the things you said, but he wasn't that bad. I gave him a 10th place because there are very much more threatening enemies. I just appreciate his plan.
Oh, I gave his plan high marks, just not him.
Yeah.
Because he's unambitious as fuck and doesn't know what to do with that plan.
Yeah.
Main hench, Richard Stamper, a German 90s boy band reject that loves torture, and that's about it. He's loyal and charismatic, but there's nothing more to his character, really. The reason he's so memorable is on the actor's shoulders and not the writer's. 14th place.
Well, he's memorable, and that's the actor's job. I gave him a 7th place because even though he looked like a psychotic Neil Patrick Harris, he portrayed the role. He was the henchman that this guy needed, I guess. Somebody to coddle him.
You know, he needed someone who could actually kill the people he sent him to kill.
Isn't that every henchman in a Bond movie?
Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
Okay.
He's plot armor, baby. It's thick.
Okay. Yeah, it's thick. Plot armor is thick.
Bond girl, Wei Lin. A super Chinese agent you can send an army after, and she'll just beat the ever-loving shit out of all of them. Fluent in 5 languages and hot as fuck. Very much Bond's equal until they nerfed her for the finale. 3rd place.
I gave Wei Lin 1st place.
Because she can fight.
Not only can she fight, but she does all her own stunts. It's fucking Michelle Yeoh, yo.
Yo.
I love her. There's a few Asian actresses that I really, really love. Michelle Yeoh and Lucy Liu are at the top of the list, with Michelle Yeoh being above Lucy Liu because Michelle Yeoh can actually do the shit that she does in her movies.
Me, I'm trying to rank the character more than the actress. It figures into it. So, like, for me, she helps. She helps them every so. She stops the ship. She throws on the detonators. But every girl above her, for me, actually, like, just straight saved the world without Bond.
I see. No, I gave her 1st place because she is by far the most capable Bond girl we've had so far.
In your opinion?
In my opinion.
One-liner. I went with the backseat driver line that he does after ejecting his strangling co-pilot. The one-liners here were nowhere near as nonstop as the last movie, and they were never really that good either. They weren't overly terrible or funny or smooth. Just meh and unmemorable. 12th place.
We're going to disagree on this one because the one-liner I picked was, "I'm just a professional." Me too. And he shoots him in the face.
Oh, yeah, well, that was badass as fuck.
That was the coldest thing I had seen in a James Bond movie yet, so I gave it 1st place.
My brain was stuck on comedic one-liners and instead of badass one-liners, and I didn't allow myself to think of that. Now I feel like I robbed myself.
Coming in a close second was the Edifice Complex, which is a great play on words when they were flying up to his big-ass picture on his big-ass building.
But the whole time it just made me go, yeah, but he doesn't want to fuck his mom.
I know, that's why that was not my pick, because it was cute, quirky, but it wasn't 1st place material. But that Me Too line, my God, man, that shit, 1st place.
Locations, South China Sea, Thailand, Japan, Germany.
Yeah, 12th place. They didn't really do anything with them.
My mans. The locations, outside of a few shots on the Thai islands in the end that we've already seen shown off in this franchise, there wasn't much more than the mundane on display.
You're not wrong.
11th place.
We were pretty close.
Protracted attempt to kill Bond. there really wasn't one. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Not really. I mean, unless you want to count the
doctor. The Stamper torture threat was kind of like an analog for it. Well, because the bad guy was monologuing, but it wasn't a protracted attempt.
No.
15th place.
No, I gave it 12th place. There was no real protracted attempt to kill Blonde, but the doctor. And I thought the doctor scene was one of the better scenes in the whole movie.
That wasn't a protracted attempt to kill Bond. That was just a showy fucking hitman.
Yeah, I know.
Come on, man. Do your job. Stop showing off.
Right?
Mission or plot. Stop a madman with ultra propaganda power and fake internet news before he manipulates the superpowers into World War III with false flag attacks and sensational headlines. The plan and mission are solid as fuck, just not the motivation. 8th place.
Because I was not counting his motivation as part of the plot.
You gave it higher marks.
I did. I gave it higher marks because there's been a lot of fucking plots out there that were ridiculously stupid, done by far scarier villains. But his plot, fucking solid, dude. I'll give it 2nd place.
Stunts. Some great stuff from the team, as always, from the opening to the halo jump to the climax. The best fight choreography so far as well. And you had to get one, I guess, movie, so here you go, 1st place.
Wow. Oh, the stunts really impressed you in this movie.
Yes, they did.
Unfortunately, you know me, it takes a little bit more to impress me with a stunt.
They're not going to blow people up anymore.
Well, you know what? Maybe they should. Maybe they should. But I did give this one 5th place because the stunts were actually, I mean, when they were done, they're good. The stunts in the new era are better, and they're going to be better because stuntmen do more and better stuff. The halo jump, filming a halo jump, that's fucking phenomenal.
That's
nuts. Dangerous as fuck and nuts. And I appreciate the danger and the nuts that a stuntman is willing to go through to get the fucking shot. So 5th place.
Score. The score is also a middling affair. It is never as snappy or cool as the last movie, and its twists on the classic style are more jarring than anything else. 14th place.
I'm going to give this one a 10. 10th place.
You liked the return to the John Barry style. Even if they
did
did kind of ruin it.
They did kind of ruin it, but I really did like the return to the John Barry style. When they came out with the big bombastic da-da-da-da right in the beginning with the horns and the orchestra and everything, I was like, oh yeah, baby, we're back. And they kind of carry that throughout the whole movie, the little twist and everything. But overall, 10th place.
Movie.
I think I've covered everything I have said pretty much more than once. This movie could have been great, and that is what is disappointing about this movie.
It's not that it could have been great. It probably could have been the best.
Yeah, it probably could have been the best. Yeah, it could.
We'll never know.
We will never know. I gave this movie overall 6th place. It's still hands down better than a lot of Roger Moore's films.
Oh, yes.
And a few of Connery's. Yeah.
I'll agree with that. This movie is better than you remember and worse than you remember. They tried their hearts out, and they tried to add their own marks, but they often just came up short in execution. Brosnan hasn't quite nailed the effortless agent swagger after he abandoned the more aggressive style he had in the last film. The Paris character is tragic, and the shit they wrote would have made her iconic if played by Monica Bellucci or anyone else with talent and charisma. The director constantly second-guessed himself. This movie had all the marks and had its moments, but as I said before, would have been way better with someone more confident behind the helm. Ahead of its time with the modern Orwellian themes, though. And still, not bad. It kicks straight ass at times. It just falls very short of GoldenEye, and I gave it 11th place.
Wow.
And it's very in the middle for me of our 21 efforts so far.
Right. And as you often say, in the middle is not where you want to be for a movie.
No, it's really not. But as you said, I'd still rather watch it than most of Roger Moore's films.
There you go.
And as they said, Bond will return, and so will we. Until then,
I'm Agent Carter.
And I'm Agent Sedgwick.
Stay spying, y'all.